just obsessed with anything British. I was a obsessed Anglophile, and I wanted to get over there. And I wasn't old enough. I wanted to go in '67. Parents were, no way. I wanted to go in '68. No way. And so finally in '69, they let me go, only if I could go with a couple of friends who were a little older. So we finally went over there. And it was like, first trip was kind of a vacation thing, sightseeing, seeing a ton of bands. I mean, the scene changed from '68 to '69. The scene changed from psychedelic, pop, flowery kind of stuff to '69 was the beginnings of prog, the blues boom, the kind of country rock sort of hippie thing that maybe the band influenced. So it really changed, but I still saw an amazing amount of bands. I saw Spooky Tooth, I saw The Nice, I saw Idle Race, Jeff Lynne, saw Caravan, saw a lot of stuff. A Taste, Free, a lot of incredible stuff that just blew my mind, you know.
When did you make the move permanently? Or were you
Well,
back?
I went back in '70. By '71, I was entertaining the thought of maybe going to move there, taking my bass and maybe auditioning. And in '71, I auditioned for a band called Spring out in Rockfield Studios in Wales, which was where Dave Edmonds produced Shake Some Action for the Groovies and did a lot of his own records. And Spring were kind of like a prog band that were on, I forget what label they were on, and it turns out in my research that at the audition, unbeknownst to me at the time, the drummer was Pick Withers from Dire Straits, who went on to Dire Straits. So that's, and I went out there with my Hofner bass and auditioned for these, for this real heavy sort of prog band. And they loved the way I played, but they kind of knew I was green, but they got a kick out of the fact that I was from New York and, you know, the whole bit. And I traveled all the way from London to Wales. I mean, you know what kind of trip that is? That's an amazing trip. So they kind of considered me, but I didn't have it together enough yet to really go full force into a band like that. And then I started hanging out at the Speakeasy and meeting musicians and doing that kind of thing. And amazingly enough, a couple of months after the Spring audition, I scored an audition with Family.
Oh.
Okay.
Alan Spencer was the
John Wetton.
John Wetton, okay.
Before John Wetton was Rick Gretsch.
Oh, right, okay.
Okay. So Family was a band that, at the Speakeasy, I met Charlie Whitney, who was their guitar player, and he said to me, yeah, we're looking for a bass player, you want to come down for a blow, you know, that kind of thing. So again, I go down there with my Hofner bass, you know, and mind you, I'm auditioning for all these sort of heavy, proggy, with this, you know, pop bass, you know, and I'm thinking at the time, might want to invest in another bass, but whatever, you know, when I can. But whatever, I go in there and I walk in the room and it was in this warehouse. And I remember sitting there with the bass and there was a list of all the bass players who had auditioned, okay, at like a desk. And basically a bass player would audition and they'd go out the back so the next guy wouldn't see who it was. But I get up to peek at the list of who already auditioned. It was very intimidating. It was pretty much every bass player that you can imagine.
Such as?
Andy Fraser, a guy from Taste, I forget his name. That kind of level, which I called mid. At that point, Free wasn't really that big yet. So mid-level sort of British bands, the bass players kind of snuck down and were auditioning. And Family was a big band, especially a live band. They were pretty big. So I was wow, I was like pretty intimidated going in. So I go in with my Hofner, and they're baked at this point. They're stoned. They've been smoking pot all day. I can't blame them. They're stoned out of their minds. They've been listening to bass players for 3 days, and they've had it. And you could just tell. And they're like, and they look at me and they go, "What do you want to do?" And I'm like, "What do I want to do? I want to get in the band. That's what I want to do. Let's just jam," they say. Okay, so we jammed for, must have been about an hour. A long time. They had no conception at that point. So the jam went on forever. And they said, "Great, whatever." And they're really stoned. And I go out the back, and the next guy's coming in. Never hear anything. And I think the next night, a couple nights later, I run into Charlie Whitney at the Speakeasy. And he said, "You did really well, but we want someone that we know and can play violin and is a drinking buddy." And, he's giving me all this routine. So that was family.